Right, lads, Liverpool B team have went and won the cup.
Liverpool C team, I've heard on Twitter.
I'm just going to list out the players that weren't playing for Liverpool, just to make you feel a bit better. Alisson, Salah, Trent, Jones, Szoboszlai, Nunes, Thiago, Jota, Matip. Basically, a lot of their first team players still whooped yous.
It was 0-0 until the 118th minute, so whooped is a bit of a...
Well, they won the cup.
Isn't it? It is. People keep saying that like we got absolutely destroyed in the game. It didn't really feel like that.
I thought you were going to win in the 90, like towards the end of the 90. I thought you were going to win it.
Yeah.
At that point, and then the weird thing was, it got to extra time. Klopp made the substitutions, and suddenly you lot just seemed to fucking give up. And after the game, Pochettino said he felt that the players on the pitch wanted penalties more than they wanted to try and win it in extra time. That's mad.
Did you see Klopp at the half time of extra time? They're coming off the pitch and he's giving them all and he's geeing them up, and I'm like, you fucking never give up, you do. And I've got to give him credit, like, because he's just such a bastard of a winner. He doesn't see the game the way other people do.
Yeah, he's got elite mentality. Like, when you're looking at Klopp and you're just thinking like, oh, could we have any other manager? Like Jurgen Klopp is just so good. And actually that in that game, it showed his quality when you're like geeing up basically academy products against sort of, you know, meant to be world-class Chelsea talent. It just shows how good he is. And look, we're going to do a lot of slagging off of Chelsea, and we're going to talk about the inconsistencies of our squad. Before we get into that, fair play, Liverpool C team beat us.
Because he couldn't have been
serious.
As they were coming off the pitch, Chelsea were like having some moments in that game, and he couldn't inside have been feeling great. But outside, he was projecting complete and utter faith and confidence in these kids. I know you guys actually, as happened statistically, you had the youngest side out, right?
Yeah, well, look, let's not talk about that, because the narrative is that, you know, a team of young kids beat us. But, you know, at the start of the game, we had the youngest team.
The most important thing.
Much more important than actual statistics or truth.
Truth is,
and the coverage wasn't biased at all. We won't talk about the media.
How did you find the coverage, Joey? All right.
Mate, Gary Neville and like the sort of sentiment that was going around it. Listen, everyone knows that the media are glazing over Jurgen Klopp at the moment. It's the farewell Klopp show, and everything's gonna ultimately revolve around that. But at the same time, to call Chelsea bottle job, was it he called it
billionaire blue bottle jobs?
Billionaire blue bottle jobs, right? Well, we didn't have £1 billion worth of players on the pitch at the start of the match or the finish of the match anyway. To call us bottle jobs, right? Straight away, bottle jobs in a match that every single bookmaker had Liverpool as a favourite in. So there's the first thing. How does that make us bottle jobs when every single bookie had us as a favourite? When we played Spurs, when we played Spurs this season, they had 2 men sent off. If we then go on to fail and win that game, that's bottling something. That's bottling something, okay? You can say what you want about the injuries that Liverpool had. Chelsea also had injuries. No one's going to feel sorry for us because we've spent a lot of money. But there are players in there that Chelsea would have liked to field that we were without. You know, our captain we were without. There was a lot of guys on the bench, that couldn't make the bench, that maybe would have been in our starting lineup. But we take that to one side. I don't think in a match that the bookmakers had us as an underdog in. I don't think as a match that we never had even a goal lead, let alone a 2-goal lead or something like that. An advantage when it came to the amount of men on the field or anything like that. How can you say that we've bottled that match?
There was also a statement from him about, you know, money can't buy everything, a sort of thing, like that sort of comment. And the ironic thing is Van Dijk was signed for £75 million. So it wasn't like Liverpool didn't have quality footballers on the pitch. Yeah, they did have like some of their second string players. Fair play to them. They fucking did well. What did you feel about the Chelsea players? Because I'm half editing a video, half and I'm talking to some of my Newcastle mates as well, and they're saying like they really didn't rate Caicedo and Enzo in that game. In terms of, this is a game where it really is an opportunity for them to stake how good they are on a match of high significance.
Yeah. Weird place to call out, I have to say. Like if you're looking at people that failed yesterday, weird players to sort of shout. I mean, Gallagher had 2 1-on-1s that he missed. We don't really hear a lot of.
Well, they actually rated Gallagher. Look, it's not all about my mates, but they were saying like Gallagher actually had a good game, and they felt like Caicedo was shite. But
this is weird, isn't it? Like when you're looking at players that made big mistakes. Like for example, I can understand if you're going to slag off Enzo, because Enzo had a moment where he had the ball in the 6-yard box. He decides to back heel when he could have easily laid it off, and that was basically, I would say that was probably one of our best chances in the entire game that Enzo fluffed his lines on.
So who frustrated you the most?
I think there were all of the chances that we missed, like the players that missed those chances, like Gallagher missing that sitter, like Sterling. I saw some stats on Sterling. He had like 0 successful take-ons, like 0 successful shots on goal, like very few passes. Like Sterling was anonymous in the entire game. Nkunku comes on, doesn't look really that good at all.
I feel like there's something happening with Nkunku, right, where Chelsea fans had high expectations, high hopes for him. Obviously, he's come back from an injury, so sometimes players, they take a while to get off the ground, but I don't think it's happening the way we expected it.
Do you know what I think though? Like sometimes when I look at teams that are going through these injury crises, right? It's like the Newcastle against Arsenal game the other day. You look at the starting 11 for Newcastle and you go, it's not a bad starting 11 though, is it? What you don't realise is, had they not been so hampered by injuries, there's probably 2-3 guys in that starting 11 who would have been rested that day. They're only in there because they've got no other options because there's so many injuries in that squad. So they're probably on the pitch at 40% or something like that. And if they had the luxury of more fit players available for selection, maybe those guys wouldn't even be on the pitch. And I often think that about the Chelsea thing. I think when you look at Nkunku, part of me looks at Nkunku and thinks you're still carrying a knock. You're not properly over that injury and you're coming back and you're playing with an injury. It was the exact same with Brower up front when we had him there before we shipped him out on loan. He was carrying a knock. And again, like I'm very, very aware everyone will go, we spent £1 billion. And do you know what? It is. It's an indictment on us that we've spent that much money. We can't keep these boys fitting on the field. And you look at the 11 we filled, it should be good enough to win a game. A cup final, especially small margins. And if you look at the most historic wins, right? Bayern Munich completely outplayed us in 2012. You know, Man City peppered our goal towards the end of the Champions League final. On another day, if key moments go in your way, if Gallagher doesn't hit the post, maybe if Enzo gets a shot off in the box, on another day, we don't look back at the run of play and we go, we took our chance and we won the game.
I think they call you bottle jobs insinuates you played terribly. I didn't think that when I was watching the game. I didn't think that it was bad performance, but obviously the attention now turns to Pochettino. This was a real opportunity for him to like rescue a bit of faith from the fan base and prove to them in the big moments I can do it, because that is a question that's been labelled at Pochettino in finals and such. What's the feeling now about him from you guys? Like out of 10, how Poch in are you?
It's hard to have a lot of confidence in Pochettino at the minute when you're looking at the long term, you know. Look at him up against Pep, right? Pep's going to be here next season. Whether Klopp goes or stays, he's going to be here next season. Pochettino's got less than a 20% win rate in matches that he's come up against Pep. And you can go straight away, oh, well, Pep's always had the better team. Listen, Pochettino was Spurs manager. Anyone now looks at City, who are City's bogey team in the league?
Spurs.
It's always Spurs. So less than a 20% win rate against him. He's now faced off against Klopp 14 times. He's got 1 win in those 14 games. Cup finals outside of PSG, where they give him away, he's never won a cup final, hasn't reached all that many. And then we're looking up at his job against the top managers in the league, and okay, we've had some spirited draws, but ultimately we're not seeing anything this season to make me go, right, next season is coming good for you.
So he's not giving you a reason to want him to stay necessarily. It's not that you're Poch out. Yeah. You're not like, I really want to see him next season in the dugout.
I'm in the middle ground here in terms of like I'm in no man's land almost. I'm like, it's not giving me enough to make me go, he's going to get things right, something good's going to happen here. But also because I am realistic in my outlook and I understand the process that we've been through with other managers since the Bowley ownership, he's also not doing enough for me to go, right, get him out, there's a better option, this guy can come in and hit the ground running. So it's no man's land, isn't it? It's not that I massively want him out, but it's not that I massively want him to stay.
Yeah, he's basically got about 3 or 4 games now to prove that he should be a Chelsea manager. And what I mean by that is there's going to be so much pressure coming down from the fans, from the pundits, from the media. People are going to be looking at the next few games. Like if he loses against Leeds on Wednesday in the FA Cup, we're out of 2 cups in a week, we're still in 11th place, then the whole picture looks incredibly
especially
concerning.
When teams around you who don't have the level of quality in their squad are outperforming you. That's where you can only look at the manager and go, you're telling me that we don't have enough quality to be higher in the league than Wolves or what? You know what I mean?
Do you know what? Well, I was watching it yesterday and a bit that really sort of stood out to me, because I was thinking about you boys and I was like, I wonder what way they're going to go, because I've watched you walk in the studio before and go, I'm done, I want him out. Yeah. Joey, I know you've kind of been in a similar position for a while where you're going, it's not that I want him out, it's just I'm not attached to him at all. I don't feel like he's developed the players. I don't feel like there's a style of play we're attached to. I was thinking about the conversation we had last week that we were talking to you about, Brian, when we were saying about Dan Ashworth leaving Newcastle and how you were sort of saying, well, you know what, I'm not really that arsed because like if you're going to pick a horse in that between Ashworth and Eddie Howe, you're Eddie Howe. I watched the end of that the cup final when Poch is going up to get his this losers medal basically, and he doesn't shake hands with Bowley. Have you seen that clip?
He did actually.
Okay, all right, sorry.
So I do just want to clarify
this clip.
I do want to clarify that. So unfortunately, it was a left-handed shake. I think you need to really watch the clip.
Right.
It was a left-handed shake.
Okay.
And then he comes through.
Can we maybe say, just for the sake of argument, that there seemed to be a bit of a lack of warmth between Poch and Bowley, and I think, mate, I'm saying this from the outside looking in. I look at your squad and I just go, this is a fucking mess. There is talent in there. There's no doubt there's talent in there. It doesn't seem to have been put together with anything in mind. We know they're doing that kind of Moneyball thing of trying to get value where they can get it, get young players in their early 20s that you can maybe sell on one day. But there's no sort of coherent way of playing between those players. And I was thinking about you boys and I was like, I don't know which horse I would back if I was you. I don't know if I'd say to myself, you know what, Poch has got enough of a record at other clubs where I back Poch, and really what I want is Poch to be given a window where he can buy his players and build a team in his image. Or would I say to myself, you know what, there's enough talent in that squad and we're not seeing enough come from it.
Yeah.
We talk about Enzo and Caicedo. This time last year, I watched Caicedo play at the Emirates and I thought it was one of the best midfield performances I'd ever seen. He was ridiculous. He was everywhere. And I was like, wherever he goes next, and we thought it was going to be Liverpool, I was like, he's going to be one of the best tackling defenders, like midfielders in the league. Enzo, we watched him win the World Cup. We know how much talent he's got. It ain't happening. I mean, I know you're saying about the missed chances with Conor Gallagher yesterday. He was the best midfielder on the pitch for Chelsea for me yesterday, Conor Gallagher. And we know he nearly went in January. They were up for accepting an offer for him. So I guess the question I'd have for you boys is like, where do you attach your hope with the club? Do you say to yourself, if they keep spending money like this, they will buy enough talent and it will come good and you just need the right coach to build it? Or do you say, get the fucking checkbook away from Bowley because he's nuts and allow a manager who knows what he's doing, I don't even know if that's Poch, to build a squad in his image?
There are isolated moments, and they're very far and few between when it does happen for these players.
Yeah.
Like you were saying about Caicedo there, I have seen good Caicedo performances in an Enzo shirt. In fact,
he's a good player.
in a Chelsea shirt. I've actually probably, and people will laugh at this, I've probably seen more good performances than bad performances with Caicedo in a Chelsea shirt. Yeah, right. But are they £100 million performances? That's the sort of question we got to level at that. Enzo the same. Like, against Aston Villa, he played really well. I thought that the pair of them played really well against Man City, but it is a sort of reflection of where we're at that I'm saying in a 1-1 draw, we're playing really well. So are they living up to the price tag? No. Do we carry on throwing more money at it and hoping to get things right? Again, I don't think we're able to do that. But when we speak about the Bowley problem here, I would say, like, as Chelsea fans, it's very easy to go, well, you're not in the Roman era anymore. Forget Bowley, forget Roman, right? We're 11th in the league. We've got to a cup final, we've lost it. 7 seasons before Roman Abramovich came into Chelsea. What's the lowest in the Premier League in those 7 seasons we finished?
Before
Would you imagine? For 7 years before Roman.
10th.
So we got 10th, you'd imagine.
Mm-hmm. I'd say lower than that, maybe 13th, 14th.
13th, 14th.
I think 8th.
6th. Never finished below 6th in the 7 years before.
Before Roman Abramovich.
How many trophies in those 7 years before Roman Abramovich?
1 or 2?
6. 6 trophies in the 7 years before Roman Abramovich as well. So what I'm saying is, listen, there's so many questions that have got to be asked of the ownership. But when I look at the job that Mauricio Pochettino's doing, right, forget the Bowley ownership, forget the Roman ownership, even going back before that, before Chelsea were a club with money, a season like this isn't acceptable.
On Bowley, though, he must be fucking thinking, Jesus Christ, because he clearly knows that he didn't have a fucking clue what he was doing in the transfer market. He must know I fucked that up to a degree. Then he's appointed multiple different managers. You're now, in his mind, as a man who has no idea, we're trying to put himself in his shoes, because we do actually know what we're doing. And he's watching Pochettino, another manager, get another identical season as last season after changing so many players, changing the manager. He must be thinking, fuck, what have I done here? Because I've invested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions into this club, bought this club for so much money, and I can't get anything to fucking work. And I've changed everything I can think of. I've done everything I've been told to do now. I've given all the power over to the right people, and it's still shit. He must be panicking.
What, the profile of manager that you've appointed? That's the initial thing straight away. You got rid of Tuchel, forget Tuchel. Let's go from Potter, Lampard, Pochettino. Stylistically, they're all different. But in terms of what they are, they're not managers that are going to speak up against the board. They're managers that will work with what they've got and they won't give the board an ultimatum. They're not Conte, they're not Mourinho, they're not these type of managers. So I'm not saying that this would be the right approach, but if you're asking the question of what can I possibly change here, appoint one of those sort of managers.
But is that
I'm not saying I want that. It is a massive gamble. It's a massive gamble. But when the chips are down, mate, and you're already on a losing streak, everything's a gamble.
This is because I hear what you're saying, and I watched. It was interesting watching those kids come on for Liverpool, and you know, I think some of them are so talented. Like Conor Bradley's a fantastic player, and watching him run behind Raheem Sterling for so much of that game. For me, that just epitomised the difference in the two clubs. Yep. Like a Liverpool academy kid coming through and, you know, just fucking tearing through, being moved positions mid-games because they got an injury to Gravenberch, still fucking performed brilliantly. Whereas Raheem Sterling, 300 grand a week, he's not even 30 years old yet. And to me, he looks like he's dreaming of the MLS. He looks like he's cashed out. And I know what you mean. I was watching Klopp, exactly what you were saying, Brian, fucking urging those players on, giving those young players an incredible environment to perform. Like coming in and going, you've got a direction, you've got experienced heads around you, you know what you're on that pitch to do. And the young players thrived. Whereas at Chelsea, your players aren't that much older than the kids that came on for Liverpool, but they're on big contracts, they're under a manager who I don't think is playing to their strengths, and they look lost. And I was like, if I was the Chelsea ownership, of course you're tempted to go, I need a personality like that in the dugout. I need like someone who's not just going to be a head coach, someone who's going to put their image on this club in the way that Klopp has at Liverpool, in the way that Pep has at City, in the way that Arteta has at Arsenal. But then the problem is, if you get a manager in like that, say a Mourinho or a Conte, and you start doing Moneyball in the transfer window, they're not going to fucking have it. And they're going to point the finger up at you.
The board can't deal with someone who isn't a yes man. They can't deal with that. They can't be emasculated in that way. They see themselves as the biggest business owners in the world. They see themselves as coming in and ripping up the system and the club and running it basically as if you were doing it on Football Manager. Like basically doing that. That is the thing. But what I'm saying is for people that are saying Poch should potentially get sacked, or for people saying that Jose is the man, or bring Tuchel back, or Conte is the one that could bring us the best future, bring all these old managers back that were challenging the board. That is the antithesis of what they want to do. They just want someone that's going to be there, that's going to coach the team, that's going to listen to the recruitment system. And in fact, they built their entire club around that system. They've gone, we're the guys in charge, then we're going to have a sporting director, then we're going to have recruitment analysts, and then we're going to have a manager. And it's almost is in that way.
You've kind of advocated for that being a good way to run a club. To be fair, when we're talking about losing Dan Ashworth at Newcastle and stuff, and if we look at Mikel Arteta, he does seem to be thriving in a similar sort of system where it's cohesive and the feedback that he is giving is being listened to. I don't know if they are listening to that feedback, and personally, it just feels inevitable that Poch is going to go now.
I think so.
I'll be shocked if he pulls this together now, because there's just been so much stop-start this season where have they turned a corner? No. Have they turned a corner? No. And usually the first season can be a bumpy ride, but this is not this bumpy.
What Joey was talking about earlier, like every decision that you're going to make from now on is a gamble. And what I'm concerned about, and why I'm sort of more in the Poch in camp at the moment, is if we keep doing this sort of cycle of transition, and we don't know who the manager's going to be, we don't know what players to buy because we don't know what system they're going to be playing in. Like, God forbid, imagine if we brought Tuchel back now. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but imagine if we did. We'd be going into the summer with a completely new transfer record.
Question then, based on the level of uncertainty that there is, so you could give Poch another season, but every fucking player knows if we get off to a bad start, you're fucked here. There's that level of uncertainty. Would it be worth you guys going the opposite way and backing him publicly, going, here, we're giving him a longer contract, he's the manager? Do you know, like, giving him a bit more assurance?
I would like them to do that, but I don't know if a lot of the fans would. And also, I think basically, as I say, I think he's got 3 to 5 games now to save his career. And if he doesn't continue in the FA Cup and he doesn't immediately beat Brentford and Newcastle, there will be so much pressure from the outside, it won't even matter what the board wants.
Because you know players, when they know you've got like a couple of years on your deal here, like my years are fucking, some of them have got 7 year 7 year contracts, right? So like, it's very hard for you to feel like you've got more power than them.
The players aren't going anywhere. So when Jacob earlier on was going, where do you put blame? Where do you apportion blame in the entire ecosystem? I 100% put the most blame on the board because they have made several high-profile mistakes up and down the pitch. Good. But then also, I think the recruitment guys have to take a bit of pressure, and then Poch also does have to take a bit of pressure. But then, for me, it's all a sort of amalgamation of all those things.
But
it's a combination.
Player power manager is you can never have a successful club like ever when the players feel more powerful than the manager. I've never seen
I don't
that.
think there's ever been an era in Chelsea Football Club where the players have less power than they do right now.
I
They
agree
are
with
kids.
you. Yeah, like they know because this guy is fucked. But they're part of the reason for that.
If you think about it, there's only one real adult that knows loads about football at the club in a managerial position, and that's Pochettino. So if you're going to sack him, then you're basically saying it's another failure, another year of transition, probably even more than that. And there is this ultimate thing where you could flip the coin and it could go the way you want it to go, or it could be exactly the same as what it has been this season with a new manager. I've heard a lot of people, and again, not necessarily saying this the way that I go, I'd heard a lot of people saying that Potter would have done a better job if he'd been given the time to actually progress.
I think Potter would be doing a like-for-like sort of job on this squad. Potter would have had zero courage if it came to the board saying, right, we're going to go and bring in X, Y and Z, and Potter would have just gone, right, okay, yeah.
That's what I mean, they're hiring yes men. They're hiring complete yes men.
And when you speak about yes men, who was the most accomplished yes man on the market? Pochettino. He was.
But to say that this is a Pochettino issue when there are chances being missed on the pitch and he set up the team in exactly the way that we would have set the team up, I probably wouldn't have started up with Sterling. But other than that, I would have set the team up in exactly the same way.
Well, yeah, but we missed chances, but we didn't play well. Let's be honest, we didn't play well. We've played Liverpool 3 times this season. The best performance we put in against Liverpool was on the opening day. And that was the first chance he had in a Premier League match.
And that was before they got sort of going.
That's before they got going. New midfield settling in. That was the first chance that Pochettino even had. So it was almost a random roll of the dice to put a starting 11 together. And that was probably the best performance we saw. So I don't see any progression in the performance. The one thing that
that's damning, that, by the way. I think you're moving over that point, but when you say that out loud, the best performance we had in 3 goals at Liverpool this season was the first one where, in theory, we would be the most inexperienced with playing with each other, the most disjointed, and that was the best goal we had at it.
And that's basically saying in 6 months they've gone forwards, you've gone backwards.
Yeah, and I think with young squads as well, with young personnel, they can often just buzz off of momentum, right? They haven't got the experience. When things aren't going well, it's very hard to turn a fight. But when you're on top, you know, it's easy to keep that momentum going. And people will laugh at this because they think, hold on, is he actually reaching and going with pre-season? But we had a really good pre-season. You know what I mean? We looked good in pre-season. We were scoring goals. Like Jackson looked like Drogba. We looked electric in Nkunku playing well. And then obviously we rolled in to that first game of the season. There was a bit of a feel-good factor sort of thing. Having the ability and the toughness and the strength of mind to be able to roll your sleeves up and persevere when things aren't going well for you is a character trait that we haven't really seen from this Chelsea side. But the only thing
that's from the manager, isn't it? Put it in.
It comes from him. But the only thing that I base this off, and this is very hypothetical, what could happen eventually in the future. But when I look at success stories in the past, Alex Ferguson, you know, he nearly lost his job at Man United. There's a point when we look back at that and go, God, imagine how different history would be if he had got sacked then. Arteta, now I remember, what was it, 12-game run or something? You won 1 game or something like that. You know, Arteta had the money in the bank, right, straight away because he had won that cup final. But ultimately, there were tough times. There were tough times under Arteta, and now things look like they're coming good. And there's probably loads more managers that aren't coming to the forefront of my mind that have had those times early on when they've struggled. So I'm banking or hoping, really, that one day, hopefully in the not too far future, we look back and we go, cool, wasn't it good we stuck by with him in that first season when things were ropey, because now things are looking a lot more rosy. Do I think that's going to happen? I can't really give you an answer. Not really sure.
Based on what you just said about Arteta, he won the cup final.
Yeah.
When his moment came, he galvanised his players and they performed on the day.
There was other things as well. I should just say quickly. He was a club captain of ours, and that's one thing I don't see with Poch. I know you boys have been fairly patient, but there isn't that connection between the fan base and the club and him.
There's an anti-connection. He's connected to Spurs. It's the complete opposite.
Arteta also gutted us of players on big contracts who were driving the club down. Ozil, he came with a pedigree.
Had the ability to do that though.
Yeah,
Poch hasn't got the ability to do that, has he?
I don't know. I mean,
actually, if you look, sorry to interrupt you, mate, but if you look recently, right, I'm not saying big contract, but brought in for big fees. Mudryk came on as a sub. Was it extra time by the time he came on? Did nothing. Obviously, we don't expect him to do that much. But if you look there, Mudryk hasn't got off the bench in 4 or 5 matches. He hasn't been in a starting lineup for about 8 matches.
He's fucked.
That is
it's
Pochettino's yes man way of saying no. I'm done with that.
Can we finish on Mudryk?
Yeah.
Because
I'm finished on Mudryk.
No, obviously, like Josh in particular had high hopes for him, and there was some reason for that. Like, obviously, before he came, he was explosive, it was impressive, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse by the week. And now you're sitting there going, he's not even bothering with him anymore. He's clearly done. Are you guys done? Is that him done at the club in your head?
I mean, you'll have a different answer on this to me, but I don't think that Mudryk's necessarily done. Do I want to see him anywhere near a starting lineup at the moment? No, I think we've got better options there.
Even with Sterling,
do you think
you wouldn't take Sterling out for Mudryk? Because I know you boys. I mean,
no, I would.
No, you would. I wouldn't take Sterling out for Mudryk. I don't think Sterling's great either, but it's best of a bad bunch, isn't it? So I think that the main thing I would like to see from Mykhailo Mudryk is a loan, and it sounded crazy. Now it sounds a bit more justified.
But that's what I'm saying, though. If Poch is in a state of mind where he's barely playing a guy who got so much money spent on him, do you just see it fizzling out now?
If Poch stays, the only option for me right now is a loan, or potentially start a next season. Let's sort of see. This season, Mudryk does nothing.
The ultimate nail in the coffin for Mudryk was a couple of people, so Lampard being one, and there have been some leaks coming out recently, have said a very clear quote about Mudryk is that he doesn't have a footballing brain. And if...
Do you know the first player who came to my head? Miggy Almiron. Is he Miggy Almiron?
Well, that's what people are saying. Yeah. So if Frank
that's harsh on Almiron. He's better than Mudryk.
If Frank Lampard, club legend at Chelsea, and then the current coach of the team is leaking out information, or it seems to be, they're saying that they don't see him as a footballer, that tells you everything you need to know about Mudryk's future.